India has for the moment pulled out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership, but the seminal trade deal seems to be continuing without India. Why the sudden change of heart from the Indian side, and what does this mean for the remaining countries? Also on the show, my exclusive interview with Nicholas Rossellini, the UN's resident coordinator in China, as part of our China-UN 40-year partnership series. Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. India backed out at the 11th hour from a trade deal that would have included 30% of the global GDP and half of the world's people. The 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, plus China, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand reached a breakthrough on RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, at a summit in Bangkok on Monday. They will press ahead, however, without India, hoping to ink the deal by next February. Now, China's Vice Foreign Minister Le Yucheng told reporters in Bangkok that India is welcome to join back into the bloc whenever it's ready. So why did India pull out, and will this have any impact on the potential deal? Is India likely to come back to the deal? Joining me for the discussion in the Beijing studio is Atul Aneja, Associate Editor of The Hindu, and from New Delhi by Professor Hailin, Vice Dean of the National Institute of International Strategy at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. It's interesting, we have the Indian guest here in Beijing and the Chinese guest there in India, but I think that shows that we will have cross perspectives, right, from both sides of the agreement. But first, let's listen to some excerpt from a joint statement from the 15 countries that agreed to the deal, or that made the breakthrough, which says RCEP will significantly boost the region's future growth prospects and contribute positively to the global economy, while serving as a supporting pillar to a strong multilateral trading system and promoting development in economies across the region. So, Professor Ye, explain to us first, in concrete terms, what do we know? What do we know about the terms of this breakthrough, of this trade deal, and how beneficial it's likely to be for regional economies?
Theoretically, it should be a mutual beneficial agreement and a win-win deal, because, you know, these 15 countries contain in various categories. Australia and New Zealand are very famous and very good at their agricultural products, and China and South Korea are pretty good on the manufacturers. And the ASEAN countries also has different advantages. So a comprehensive trade deal should make everybody feel the mutual benefit. But this is a theory, and in the practice we can notice that some country, if there's a fully implementation of the deal, someone will receive the more benefit than others in the context of the trade. So for the whole region, we should put another fact into the consideration, that they will reduce the trade cost, remove some barriers such as the tariff, and then help the region to reach a certain level of the regional economy integrity. So it will be, for the long-term run, everybody will receive the benefits. But in the short term, someone will receive more. It's natural. So
tell us a bit more about the short-term impact for some countries or some industries. For instance, we have countries that are less developed than others within the bloc. We have some Southeast Asian, actually many Southeast Asian countries are not so developed. The size of their economy is also smaller. India, in terms of trade, in terms of per capita, in terms of level of development, also relatively low. China doing pretty strong, pretty aggressive in trade, and then we have the more developed countries, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, being very traditionally good exporters and stronger economies. So what would the deal do to the less developed economies and smaller economies in this bloc? Professor Ye.
Of course, when we talk about a trade deal, if we fully implement it, then that means the strong exporter will receive the more benefit than the importer. But in a matter of fact, if we are talking about in the short term, but if for the long term running, this means help the local industrialization in some less developed countries, help the industrial capacity move from high cost, labor cost country into the lower labor cost country. So for long-term run, everybody receive the meaning. But for short-term, just we can raise the example. When the China signed the deal, trade deal, FTA with the ASEAN country, actually for the first years, the trade deficit of the ASEAN country was getting enlarged. So for short-term, there will be a challenge. But for long-term running, I think it's the mutual benefit agreement. Otherwise, the 15 countries won't sign this deal.
Absolutely. As we know, the ASEAN countries that you mentioned, they are on board for this deal. But let me turn to Atul here. Is what Professor Ye pointed out, for instance, the short-term trade deficit, the challenges, the competition from other bigger economies and more competitive companies, the primary reason why Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to withdraw from this deal?
Well, the primary reason for not signing the text, because the deal has still not been signed, what has been done is the 15 nations have finalized the text, and that has to be taken over to the next meeting, which will probably take place in February 2020. Now, the reason why India did not subscribe to this text is primarily because of domestic reasons. And the compulsions which are coming in are from various sectors. One is the entire opposition from left to right is opposed to this deal because it thinks that the manufacturing sector of India will be very badly hit because of Chinese strength in manufacturing, which because of the free trade area will come into India big time, hurting employment in domestic industry. As far as agriculture goes, you see Australia and New Zealand, both very strong in dairy products and wheat, etc., which is going to hit the Indian agriculture sector. So, and then you have the trade unions which are coming into play. And all this is coming in the context of economic slowdown, where India's growth rate has gone down to 5%. There were also recent elections which took place in 2 provinces, where questions of employment and economy came into the fore, and the BJP, the ruling party, which Prime Minister Modi heads, has not done as well as it was expected to do. So there is a multiplicity of domestic factors which have sort of converged right now, and which has driven India to withdraw, not permanently, but withdraw, if you see the statement come from India, in the current circumstances, implying that if circumstances change, and then there is still room for negotiation.
Yeah, but just to look at the text per se at this moment, do you subscribe to the kind of fears that have been raised, that have been flagged? For instance, Chinese manufacturing potentially impacting Indian local manufacturers, or New Zealand or Japanese agriculture product undercutting Indian farmers. How valid are such arguments?
I think in the short term they are valid, because and that's what was raised by the Indian delegation when it wanted a trigger mechanism to be to be part of the deal, and that would mean that if there's any country trying to dump its goods, it will be automatically cut off beyond a certain threshold. This was one of the demands, primarily as an automatic shutdown in case, let's say, there are fears of Chinese dumping their goods in India, then there would be automatic mechanism which will say, okay, this much and no more. That is one of the issues. Second thing, what India wanted was greater access to labor and services. Now you see, in both cases, labor, cheap labor coming from India and flowing into the RCEP economies. That's an advantage. The second thing is the services sector on IT and others, the human skills which India can export.
Yeah.
So these are actually these 3, and country of origin, these are 3 objections which have come in. I don't see either of them is completely insurmountable. We need another round of negotiations. I think India and China need to talk separately on this. When President Xi was in Chennai, he talked of a 100-year plan between India and China. I think we got to now talk and address these specific concerns, because I personally think that it will be a shame if India doesn't become part of the RCEP.
Professor Ye, let me go to you. What do you think of the kind of demands that India has raised and the the decision for India to withdraw, at least for this moment, from this RCEP. Obviously, the different economies within the bloc have all their respective concerns, but somehow they are able to find a common denominator in this text which are satisfactory, and it seems that India is not able to see the possibility of a compromise within the current text.
Firstly, I would like to argue that India didn't completely, permanently withdraw from the RCEP.
Okay.
I prefer to say only hit a break for a temporary moment. In the, I think in the future the negotiation will continue. So there's the door is still open. Secondly, we should understand in this decision. Some experts or scholars argue that it's because of the Indians' political culture. Every time the multilateral negotiation, when India participates, they will slow down process, considering the SAARC and another regional framework. Yeah, if you are only talk about the historical experience, they may be yes, but considering the RCEP, we should fully understand the Indian stance, because the India's domestic economic situation is not ready for full participate the RCEP. According to the Japanese studies, the Indian withdrawal from the RCEP will reduce the 30% measured by the population, but only reduce 7% by the trade amount. So that means India's economy basically is still domestic oriented. It's not ready for the very severe and very
some people are arguing. But some people are
international
arguing.
trade competition.
Yeah, Professor Ye,
So
sorry for interrupting. Some people are arguing India should take the risk. You know, India should jump into the cold water like when China did when it joined the World Trade Organization. It was considered to be, some of the terms were very harsh, but anyway China joined, and it did China great service because it opened up trade between China and the world tremendously.
My personal opinion.
Yes, go
my
ahead.
personal opinion. Yeah, my personal opinion is that the Chinese experience not necessarily always applied to another country, especially for India. Because before China signed a deal with signed a trade deal and joined as a full member of WTO, China already adopted open reform policy and conducted the so-called the external trade oriented policy for a very long time. But Indians didn't. It's still domestic oriented.
Okay.
So maybe India required a longer term. We should understand and respect India's decision.
Okay.
Not rush to push into India to make the decision.
Okay. We have to leave it there. Many thanks to Aneja of the Hindu and Professor Ye Hailin from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. We're going to take a short break. You're watching The Point. When we return, I'll be reflecting on our special series of 40 years of the UN in China and how the two can move forward in the future with the UN's resident coordinator, Nicholas Rossellini. Stay with us.